This is MrsAgroSquerril standing in for Agro while he recovers from some vocal strain. It could be a couple of days, it could be a couple of weeks. I hope you enjoy. At the end of Immortality by Thelonious Howe. I will fetch physician. Physician will fix. The Eternal was propped up in their bed, a small heap of pillows cushioning their back. Rylan, sweetheart, there is no need to call a physician. There's nothing to fix. You said you were dying. Physician will fix, Rylan repeated. The Eternal sighed and patted the bed next to themselves, beckoning Rylan to come and sit. Nervously, he obeyed. Was this somehow his fault? Sure, he dropped a spoon every now and then, and sometimes burned toast. But were those grievances truly worth abandoning this plane over? He clumsily hoisted himself onto the rather too large bed and dared not to face the Eternal. Is my fault? Rylan heard vitality return to the Eternal's voice. No, none of this is your fault. Don't you ever think that. It simply is my time. Time? He asked. The Eternal scoffed. Yes, my time. Don't play naive with me, you know well of death. Rylan fidgeted with his paws. Yes, I know well of death. Rylan will die. All of ancestors die. But not you. You are eternal. Eternals not die. The Eternal made a strange laugh cough. I'm not eternal, dear. I just live longer than you. Whatever fables your ancestors told, whatever myths you came to believe, I assure you, are all false. I'm but a mortal, flesh and blood, same as you. Rylan didn't like this revelation at all. If Eternals weren't gods, then why had they come? What ends justified the great means that were poured onto his people? The Eternal seemed to sense his discomfort and decided to change the subject. Did your ancestors ever tell you how we became acquainted? Yes, he replied enthusiastically as he dug through his pockets. Many times. He produced a small folded paper from one of them and handed it to the Eternal. Have with me always. The Eternal gingerly took and unfolded it, only to find itself staring at its own much younger face framed with one of Rylan's ancestors. It was likely a copy of a copy. The original couldn't have survived so long, but that didn't matter. The sentiment behind the thing was what held importance. The Eternal's hand gently touched the picture. God, I was so young then, so full of piss and vinegar. This earned a giggle from Rylan. Yes, Elder said you fell from sky like angry god on pillar of hate, broke bonds and shattered shackles. I wish I had seen. I'm glad that you didn't, the Eternal sighed. It was an awful time, dreadful. While I'm glad that I did it, I'm gladder still that you never experienced it. Why? Rylan asked. The war was a dark time. The rationing that came after, darker still. They didn't tell you, did they? He could see the sadness in the Eternal's eyes. So many of your people, Rylan. So many died, even after we won. It was awful. You killed us, but always thought you were great liberators. Poor Rylan couldn't make sense of any of this. Those who fell from the heavens to slaughter their slavers were in their own way just as horrendous? No, the Eternal sighed. No, we never killed any of your people. We just couldn't save them. It's basically the same. And Rylan exhaled with relief. But now it was his turn to be angry. No, you saved. You liberated. I am free because your actions. My people are because your actions. What could have been will never be. Those that died, not futile. Not your fault. His little spat seemed to cheer the Eternal up some. You know, it let its voice trail off for a moment, seemingly not knowing how to continue. When your ancestor swore to me his bloodline oath, I was appalled by the thing, disgusted even. Rylan knew this. The Eternal had many times in his presence lamented over the rules of the bloodline oath. But, it continued, I'm incredibly glad that he did. This caught him by surprise. He never could have guessed that the Eternal would have one positive word to say about the oath. It had only ever lamented its existence and had constantly tried to circumvent its affirmations. Why? He prodded, determined to get to the bottom of this sudden change. Because, the Eternal responded, you and your family were the best friends anyone could ever ask for. A weak little, oh, was all he could muster. Rylan, I need you to do me a favor. The Eternal seemed to rally again. Yes, of course. Anything. The Eternal drew a deep breath. No, I need you to understand. This isn't an order or a task or a request. This is a favor, a personal one to me. So this was it then. This was truly the end. Rylan swallowed hard. Favor, yes. And a soft smile played on the Eternal's face. When I am gone, I want you to make the universe a better place in my stead. Rylan picked at his claws a bit and nervously responded. I will try, but I am small and not powerful, and I cannot live long like you. I do not know how to do this favor you ask, but we'll try. The Eternal gave a weak laugh. No, honey, you can. Your smile can light up a room. You can make someone's day better. I am not asking you to move stars. I'm just asking that you help when you can, where you can. If you see someone in need, give them support. Just make every day a little bit better. This gave him a renewed round of confidence. These were a little things he could do. Yes, he said, promise. Wish Rylan could change universe, like you. The Eternal gave another, if we could chuckle. If anyone could change the universe, I'm sure it would be you. And that's when it hit him. He didn't want to give the endless goodbye, but it was fast approaching, and he had no say in the matter. But the Eternal had faith, and that was imbued in him now. He couldn't let them down. I'm awfully tired, the Eternal said. I think I'm going to rest my eyes for a moment. Rylan nodded at this. Yes, may be good for you. The Eternal's eyes slowly fell closed. And you'll be here when I wake up? Their voice was but a whisper. Yes, Rylan lied. The metronomic ticking of an ancient clock in the corner issued the only noise in the room. He clutched onto the Eternal's hand, holding it like he was grasping their soul. He focused on not letting it go so hard that the metronomic tocks erased themselves from his ears. He watched as the rise and fall of the Eternal's chest became shallower and less frequent, until they stopped altogether. And the clock on the wall began to chime, heralding a new hour, and it snapped Rylan out of his trance. He realized he was holding the hand of a corpse. The Eternal had gone. As the last chime faded, Rylan sighed, the finality of the situation weighing heavily on him. There would be no waking, no more requests, no conversations. For him, there was nothing left in this room to be done. Before sliding himself off the bed, Rylan gently folded the Eternal's arms across its stomach. He had no frame of reference for what the proper decorum was for an expired Eternal, but to him it felt right, and so that's what he did. Even if it was wrong, he was sure they'd understand. As he approached the door, he turned back to get one last look at the Eternal. What a terrible and tragic thing it was to watch one of them die, and yet he felt honored. They had wanted him with them as they slipped past the veil. Their words, so full of friendship, must have held some measure of truth, so he offered one last small bow and quietly left the Eternal to its peace. And then Rylan did what he thought he should do. He made all the appropriate calls and ensured that suitable arrangements would be seen to. But he would not be there for last rites. He would not be attending the funeral. It would not be what the Eternal would have wanted. And besides, Rylan had to pack up his things. He had a promise to keep. End of story.
I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.